Woke up, wrote a denunciation, another denunciation during the day and before going to bed. It sounds surreal, but a Russian woman has been living according to this schedule for more than a year. According to lawyers, she has already written 922 denunciations against the Russians. Moreover, the woman told in detail about her activities to the victim of one of her denunciations. A complaint was written against the Russian anthropologist Alexander Arkhipov back in the autumn. After the broadcast in the opposition media, the woman contacted the author of the slander and received a letter in response with the following thesis.
Denunciation is in my blood. My grandfather was a Soviet officer at the front from 1942 to 1945. He was a secret agent of the People's Commissariat for Internal Affairs. I am a professional, unpaid informer. During the first year of the special military operation, I sent 764 denunciations in electronic form to authorities, various organizations, both public and private. Meaning such denunciations as mine is comparable to the effect of the use of submarines from the publication of Alexander Arkhipov on Facebook.
And this informer is not a unique example. In the first half of 2022 alone, Russians wrote 145,000 denunciations against fellow citizens. That is, a denunciation was already written against 1 out of 1,000 Russians. And taking into account the fact that since that time denunciation has only been popularized by officials, now the situation can be much worse. And according to experts, this is a natural stage in the fall of Putin's Russia.
The Russian Federation in its current architecture is a bottomless construction. We are always trying to find a solid bottom somewhere, to find solid ground when we discuss some news episodes, events. And every time we fall down and down. Therefore, I think that it probably does not make sense to look for some kind of stronghold here. This is the next milestone, the next stage, which we are talking about, of which there have already been many in fact.
Only in recent weeks information has come into the public field about denunciations against actress Leah Akhidjakova and singer Alla Pugacheva, an 8-year-old schoolgirl from Moscow, for a video with Russian and Ukrainian flags. But the most curious thing is that denunciations began to come to the supporters of the war against Ukraine. So a complaint about the discrediting of the Russian armed forces was even written against the war criminal Igor Girkin. The reason was his criticism of the generals and Putin personally for, as he believes, too poor conduct of the war.
The funny thing is that the flywheel of denunciations spinning up almost always comes to the one who launched it, to those at the top, because over time Putin will not be Putin enough. After all, the real Putin would have done differently. Shoigu will also turn out not to be a marshal of victory or defeat, but some kind of national traitor, and accordingly the debunking of the cult is the next thing that comes after the 1930s. Let's remember Stalin, and now it will be exactly the same.
Today, a denunciation in Russia is the first step towards a person getting a real prison term, even if the reason for this is completely far-fetched. So, a Moscow resident was arrested for 14 days after arrived in the subway. There, the man opened the so-called extremist materials on his phone. For repeated such viewing, he faces up to 5 years. Reported by Roman Smoler, Danilo Kobza, UATV News.